Hi. Welcome to the spoiler-free part of this review. In summary, Death Note is good, Death Note movies are better, and fanboys can be idiots sometimes. Thus ends the spoiler-free part of this review. Those not wishing to see spoilers are free to exit the review in the directions indicated by the flashing arrows. We hope you've enjoyed. Have a nice day. Death Note. Death Note came out in Japan back in 2006, and since then its popularity has soared on both sides of the ocean. For those of you who haven't seen it, I'm going to take a quick second to fill you guys in.
Death Note is touted as being a psychological thriller, much like Silence of the Lambs, Seven, etc. Wikipedia describes a psychological thriller as a specific subgenre of the wide-ranging thriller genre, focusing on plot over character, and thus emphasizes intense physical action over the character's psyche.
Interesting, eh?
Here's the basic storyline. After being bored for who knows how many years, a Shinigami named Ryuk accidentally drops a tool for killing into the world of humans, known only as the Death Note. It is then picked up by an equally bored high school genius by the name of Yagami Light. On the inside cover of the book, it explains that if you were to write someone's name into it while thinking about them, they would die. And as any normal person would, Light excuses this explanation as nonsense that couldn't possibly be true. Until he decides, hell with it, and tries it out, with the result being, it doesn't work.
I wish I could say that. It would have surprised me had it not actually worked, but then the plot would have gone nowhere, so yeah, of course it worked.
And this is where the psychological thriller part starts kicking in. Having realized what he has and what he can now do, Light quickly changes from the law-abiding son of a police officer citizen to a weird type of serial killer nicknamed Kira, whose targets are criminals who have been wrongfully freed from their sentence due to holes in the legal system. Some may argue that this is not criminal at all, and he's just doing what the legal system failed to do, but mainly it's just him rationalizing his actions into something more righteous than they actually are. Thankfully, though, some people in the world do not think the way he does. Enter L, the world's greatest detective. Never appearing in public, always elusive, L provides a formidable foe for Kira's genius with a genius of his own. In the first confrontation, for example, L not only discerns what country Kira is located in, but the very district in which he resides. The whole first story arc is about the two of them battling it out in an epic clash of intelligences. However, all it really boils down to is a simple game of cat and mouse. The only thing about it is that you never know who is the cat and who is the mouse at any given time, and that's what really drives the story home. Everyone comes back next week to see how L traps Kira, and then the week after that to see how Kira gets out of it. Although it's usually something along the lines of find a new clever way to use the Death Note, have L find an invisible loophole, which Kira either missed or ignored, then have another new clever way to use the Death Note in a repeating, almost never-ending cycle until the explosive climax in episode 25, after which the runaway train known as the plot takes a nosedive off the peak of anime greatness and plummets down into the deepest, darkest depths of hell that myself and other fans would soon love to forget about. Like right now. So, back to the good bits. Let's see. The music seems to be a logical direction to go into next. I happen to be a big fan of epic-sounding orchestration similar to Or Fortuna or One-Winged Angel, and Death Note seems to have more of them than any other anime I've come across as of yet, which is indeed great, but at the same time, there can be too much of a good thing.
I say this because the sheer amount of epic songs is just plain overwhelming. It feels like every other song in the soundtrack is just another epic orchestration with a Latin choir, and it gets a little repetitive after a while. However, when you combine that with the fact that this is a Madhouse production and that these guys gave Death Note astoundingly beautiful visuals, what you have is a formula that gives the show the surprising ability to make anything sound and look epic. Let's take an example and compare this to a real-life situation, shall we?
Take a potato chip and eat it.
Okay, now I'm starting to pull things out of my arse to avoid the big gaping hole that is Death Note's second story arc, so I'll make this quick. This is where the show died. They took the most well-liked character in the show and quickly fired him out of the series without too much of a second thought. And yes, I know that's how they did it in the manga, and that anime that stray from the manga tend to be shit in comparison, but this could have been an exception. And oh no, now we have Nier and Mello, L's supposed replacements, but they do nothing. They're about as interesting as... Well, okay, I don't have a snappy metaphor for that, but the bottom line is they're shit. No longer is there any more cat and mouse games, no more just as planned, none of it. They should just let the series die there and be done with it. And please don't get me started on how the last episode actually turned out, because I could spend a whole other review on that train wreck alone.
Which brings me to my next point. How could the series have gotten better? Enter the Death Note movies. In early 2006, even before the anime came out, Warner Bros. Japan got the bright idea to make a Death Note live-action movie because of the manga's popularity. Well, actually 2 movies, but that's neither here or there. And they take place between the 1st and 25th episodes of the anime series, being the entire first story arc. Basically, everything is exactly the same story-wise, with minor changes to accommodate the bits of plot they took out due to playtime. But the major thing is that the second story arc doesn't exist.
I know.
Instead, they completely threw the audience for a loop by changing the entire ending of the arc, making it better, but also so that they could bring in another sequel several years later that completely slaps the second arc in the face in terms of quality. But that's just my humble opinion. However, there is one thing about the movies that make me like them so much more, and that would be the fact that they inserted scenes in which Light could actually see the effects the Death Note has on people he uses it on. It makes him seem a lot more evil that way than in the anime, because he can see what he is doing, he can see that it is wrong, yet he continues to do it anyway, which made for a great addition to the already fantastic story.
There's also the rewrite OVAs, which I guess deserve a brief mention, even though they're just pointless little things. All they do is compress the anime series into 2 shows about 2 hours long each, one for each of the story arcs, and are kind of useless unless you haven't seen the anime, in which case I would just recommend the movies. So yeah, pointless. And lastly, my final topic before you go running off to better videos. Fanboys. You guys seriously creep the shit out of me. Now, I don't mean to sound rude or insulting when I say any of this, but I've heard a lot of people say that big fans of Bleach or Naruto tend to be annoying and stupid, but you guys seem to take the cake. There comes a point where you cross a boundary between fan and obsessive fan. Let me give you an example. You know the death of Michael Jackson, right? Of course you know. Everyone and their dog knows by now. But shortly after they announced that he went into cardiac arrest, I began seeing posts on forums and message boards from Death Note fans saying, "Oh my god, he had a heart attack. It must be because of a Death Note." Some people would call this hilarious. I call it sad. Okay? I'm worried for you guys. There comes a point where you need to flip on your reality switches and wake up! It's just a show. Don't take it seriously. You can't kill people by writing their name in a book. Notebooks don't just fall out of the sky. Oh, for fuck's sake.